Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome back into the podcast. Over this next hour, I will detail to you some of the most important information that you've ever heard. It's going to be pretty mind-blowing, for one. It's going to be mind-blowing. It's going to be exquisite. It's going to be detailed. This is an open-minded experience. Feel free to comment on my YouTube videos. That would make me happy, even though YouTube does filter out comments I receive without asking my permission. They just take out comments. Even though they do that, do comment. Like, I guess I didn't really encourage you because I just said that it's possible your comment will just be gone from YouTube taking it out. But that's not my fault. I'm just talking about how YouTube shadow bans me and they take whatever it is, or they just have robots that take out, because I get a notification on my phone, like somebody commented on one of your videos. And then if I go to the video, all of the days after that, any time after that, I go to the video, the comment isn't there because somebody commented and then YouTube took it upon themselves to remove it. They just maybe have some function in place that does that, or it's because they removed one of my episodes and don't really like me. I don't remember if I mentioned that, and I feel like I did. Maybe I mentioned in the previous episode or some other time, they took out my episode called Vaccine Hesitant because they said it was medical misinformation. And that's just kind of funny because how is it misinformation, a guy who is vaccine hesitant saying that he is? That is information. That's not misinformation. Not that the whole episode is me saying I am vaccine hesitant, but I think I mentioned it at least once. But that's what I'm saying, basically, with the points that I'm bringing up. I am vaccine hesitant, so it's only misinformation if I was lying. So YouTube, you don't get to take it upon yourselves to say that I was just kidding about all of that, especially when I wasn't. It's not misinformation. It's also not medical. Like, YouTube, you are misinforming people by saying that that's medical or something. Like it's like you're chalking it up to something that a doctor would say, when what I'm saying is just for entertainment. You're misinforming people by saying that this is medical and some medical form of information. And misinformation is a form of information. It's just kind of like a degraded form of it. So it's like, it's not medical. You wouldn't be like, it's not medical the same way. Like, what authority do I have over medicine, YouTube? And why are you saying that I do? Or are you saying that what I'm talking about is like, this is medicine and it's just me saying I'm vaccine hesitant, and that's not. How is somebody saying that? How is that misinformation? It's impossible. That's an impossible diagnosis of the situation, YouTube. You were wrong, and I would like a handwritten apology from the CEO, because I know that that's how that works. The CEO needs to meet me where I'm at. Well, and that's some of what's going on in my life. I have, that's not really anything more going on in my life than that you would already know. That's something related to the podcast that's happening in my life. Something else is happening in my life. I put a new vinyl record on my wall behind me. If you're tuned into the video, you might be able to see it. It's Crystal Castle's album number 2. They just numbered their first few albums. Crystal Castle's album number 2, I got it. I bought it. It's a prized possession. It's really one of the greatest prizes of all, and I got it. I got Crystal Castle's number 2, and now it's on my wall behind me. So, suck it, haters. I bet you thought that I wouldn't get that album, but I did. So I'm a winner, and I am able to obtain material possessions. And and I'm just like so sick of people saying that I couldn't, because just one person after the other. Like, you will never accrue wealth through your possessions, or just you're never going to collect things, or just you're never going to be successful anyway. Because look at your face, geez, or something like that. I kid you not. I mean, that's not actually what they say, but I mean, maybe I do have a sort of funny face, as long as my face is on camera for every one of these episodes. I guess at some point, it's okay to reference that face is happening. Like, I know that I'm being videotaped, and that it is specifically my face for all of it, not just me, but my face. And I'm not going to make that transition and get another face, get a face transplant. So as far as I know, this is the face that we're going to have, that's going to be on this podcast anyway, that I'm going to have. And I'm also not like, what if it was just me talking, or it's like I use the face of somebody I know and like digitally impose it over mine at some point, but don't say anything about it. That would maybe throw people off a little. But I'm just saying, as long as the topic of my face is actually pretty evidently part of all of these videos I'm doing. And I mean, for the listening one, you probably tuned into the video at least once, so now you put a face to the thing you're hearing, in case you only ever heard audio of me. But there is a person behind the words. There is a voice beyond the sea. There's a person. But anyway, I'm just saying, like, in the area of referencing my face, that was already done a number of times. Like, yeah, I don't even have to say it, and it's just like videos really will reference. They'll reference and cross-reference your face, without you even doing it. Like, it's implied beyond implication. Because it's like, it would be referenced because nobody actually brings it up. It's like, it's just assumed. Somebody starts videotaping their face, and it's just kind of like that person and the person who watches that content. It's just assumed that, yeah, of course that face is there now. Like, nobody has to talk about it during the video. Like, for a YouTube video or like a TikTok, that's just the person doing some dumb thing. They don't start it off by being like, I know, this is my face here, and this is me. Like, you don't need an introduction, but like the tape tells all, recordings tell all, and the immutability of recordings and recorded material. But it's kind of like, it's just that in this wild and wacky world that we live in, and that should be the name of a water park or something, Wild and Wacky Water Park. Wild but wet, but that's kind of sexual. Wild and wet, wild, wacky, and wet. Water park and strip club. But there used to be this club in the Wisconsin Dells. The Wisconsin Dells is a vacation destination, and it's, whether you like it or not, it's a vacation destination for the faint of heart, and for the strong of heart, for the strong-willed. Who is it? What is the portfolio? What is the description? What is the person that goes to the Wisconsin Dells? Who ends up there? Like, what's the word I'm thinking of? The silhouette, the portfolio, the description of them. I don't think I'm coming up with the right word. Like, the person that meets all the criteria for the kind of person that goes to the Wisconsin Dells on a vacation. I don't know who that is. I think if you're more classy, you're gonna go to Door County. Wisconsin Dells, it's just a classless enigma of a place. No class is expected to be there. You could be rich, you could be poor. I mean, It's just, I guess it's like the Christian church, the Wisconsin Dells. You could be rich, you could be poor. I have a hard time like identifying that the Christian church, like, are you rich in there or are you a poor person? But it's kind of like it's supposed to make everybody the same, so it's like classless. So it would be hard to say that a Christian person is like a privileged person, but it is kind of like that. You're a privileged person, but as I've mentioned before, privilege is just kind of like priviness to secrets. And so you're going to get privilege really anywhere you go. If you go into a church, you're going to get their secrets about how they do things. But if you go to a company and work for them, you get that company's secrets that other people who don't work there don't know about because they don't spend their time in there. You get privilege by entering into anything. Like even if you go to a bar a number of times, there's some privilege with that. Like you can't see what's happening on the other side of Michael's or Michael's, the craft shop. If you don't go in there, you can't see what's going on. You don't know what's going on the other side of Office Depot when you just see the sign. If you've never been in there, you don't know the secret. And it is like a secret because they close themselves off. And also a place like Walmart doesn't even have any windows. Think about that. But that's not all places. Like drive-throughs, the drive-through itself is a window. But that's not really why they made it like that. I mean, it wasn't like a window beforehand. And they're like, oh, you know what would be good? We could convert this into a drive-through. Oh, that's really fortunate. And that's the way it worked for every fast food. They just fell into money accidentally. Like McDonald's doesn't set up anything in their restaurant any certain way so that like it helps them out get more money. What I'm saying is that a restaurant is part of the restaurant is the product through and through because every detail in Wendy's is like somebody is like, what painting could we put up that would lose us money? We can't do that one. They're like, it has to be literally everything inside of a fast food is like geared in the direction to make them money, or they're like thinking about how could this fuck us up? Like when it's something like Wendy's, you already see that they are good at making money. They're already the people that are good at making money are the people behind all of that. But anyway, there's this club in the Wisconsin Dells called Club Wet, but the Wisconsin Dells is the water park capital of the world. And you know what? Thinking about it now, because I'm a smart person, I put things together, you know that? I make connections like a boom, like one thing is like another thing, and then I'm just kind of like the K'NEX guy, where K'NEX is that toy that like, anyway, I could have come up with a better analogy on the spot, but I am currently making fun of myself for actually not making the connection, so that's all right. It checks out. I'm always consistent, and it hurts actually. It hurts to be this consistent all the time. It's painful. It's painful for me to be this authentic, this like through and through. Like I try to throw in something random in my life, but it's like, oh, I'm just so on top of things that it was part of what I was doing beforehand. Like it's painful. But like Club Wet is this club that was in the Wisconsin Dells, I guess just for the adults at the point that they made their kids go to sleep in the hotel or the indoor water park or whatever. It's like the Wisconsin Dells is the water park capital of the world, quote unquote. And so there's a ton of water parks there. And so unfortunately they don't have a water park that's like the Wet and Wild Wacky water park, but they did have a Club Wet, I guess kind of as emblematic of the vibe and the spirit of the Wisconsin Dells. Like maybe that place embodied everything that the Wisconsin Dells stood for. And I went into Club Wet, and I would agree with that statement that I just made. The assessment that I just created as a judgment to Club Wet, I agree with that. I agree with myself previously as a critic, like not that's not who I am all the time. It's just two different parts of I want to distinguish myself from the person who made that statement. Um, because today I guess I just want to be annoying or something. But so I went in there and they closed it down, unfortunately, not because I went in there. They closed it down later on. They closed it the second I went in. They're like, this cannot be our crowd. This is not our target audience. Even though like I'm a white guy in their 20s. Like that's probably what the Wisconsin Dells was trying to attract. Like that's how ugly I am, you know. It's like they closed down. They're like, even though we're racist, okay, whatever. Um, there, so the yeah, because I was talking earlier about my face, and that is like it's not. I mean, who know? I don't know. I don't really make that judgment whether or not my face is ugly. But I was doing stand up the other day, and a comedian pointed me out of the audience and started talking to me. And this happened a few times, I guess, where the comedian starts talking to me because I look attentive. And so if a comedian gets up there that likes to talk to the audience, I'm a good target because I'm usually looking at them and I'll just respond with something normal rather than try to take the fire off of the person speaking. Like I try to help them out. Um, so I'm a good person to talk to, but they were like, you have one of those faces. This comedian said this while they were on stage. They're like, you have one of those faces that is like there's something slightly off about it, where it's like you'd think it would be attractive, but there's maybe one thing wrong with it. But like that's the way that I've heard Ricky Gervais describe Steve Carell. So I'm guessing that's probably what he heard, that he was like repeating something kind of similar. Um, so it's really like a compliment, but it's like it's a compliment in the comedy world. But I know the comedian anyway, at least a little bit. Um, so he was just joking. It's like a compliment to do that if you're somebody doing comedy because then you look funny, or it's like then it was meant to be for you to try to do funny things. So if you looked funny already, um, so it's important to look funny, but like there's Club Wet in the Wisconsin Dells, but they don't have it anymore. But I guess it's just like it's to represent, hey, wet things happen in the Dells. Like they can't call it the wet capital of the world because then it would be more popular. Then it'd be a giant orgy. Then they would make even more money. Or like maybe somebody should go in that similar direction. But it's just like if you merge the spirit of Club Wet with the spirit of the rest of those water parks, like the water parks are already wet, but it was just a club. It wasn't a strip club. There weren't like people having sex on the floor, at least not when I was there. But that's because they stopped having sex when I got there. They're like, now it's lame to have sex in here. But but anyway, I'm just saying I did go into Club Wet and I was dancing in there. I was dancing in that club. They were playing all the hits, and just in case you've ever been in Club Wet, but it's like it's gone now. It's really a distant memory at this point, unless they made another one. It's just kind of a weird feature for this like family vacation destination, the Wisconsin Dells, that they have this club that it's like it's kind of weird to go to a club, I guess, if you're on vacation with your family. But I wasn't on vacation with my family. I was just on a vacation with my friends. But like, I guess you go there just with your friends too. And I'm a testament to that. But like, obviously there's a lot of people going there just with their friends because it isn't just water parks. Like, this is a commercial for the Wisconsin Dells. Look, it isn't just water parks either, even though it's called the water park capital of the world. It's like, there's go-karts. So, it's like, hey, there's go-karts. So I know that we're like making this big deal about the water park. You could get wet in here. So like, They probably, like, there's a water park called whatever world, and they couldn't what, I can't think of the names, but it's like the Great Wolf Lodge. I guess their tagline couldn't be "You're gonna get wet in here," just overall, because that might lead to some problems for them. And that's too bad. For being the water park capital of the world, like, they really like water. I think that that's a double entendre. Um, you can't like water anymore now. That's dirty. Like, don't mention water. That's really slutty. Because who knows what you're referring to? That's going to devolve into drunkenness and orgies if you start talking about water because it's dirty. So that's the way that it is now. I mean, that's probably the way that it's going to be in the future, or like that some group of people is like, hey, actually, it's sexual harassment to mention water. So you really, like, if you would please lay off. But it's like there's some group everywhere trying to convince everybody of one of those, or like trying to tell you that you're dumb for mentioning it, or you're sexist, or whatever. It's like there's a group behind every word. Every word becomes problematic, every phrase. Like, there's always groups of people trying to make it out to be something that it isn't, like saying that the world is this different version of reality than it is. And it's easy enough to do that, and it's like that's totally feasible because that's what the world is. Like, that's what the world economy is. It's just different factions, different groups of people that are like behind something that they're like, this is our reputation. Like the group of people that likes alternate pronouns, and they're going to be behind that, and they're going to spread that into the world. But I'm saying the point that I want to make right now is just like, you can really get lost in like rumors of things, or like rumors that this is the next thing that people are all going to be saying, or it's like you have to speak in line with the way we want you to speak, or like you can't use these words because they sound sexist, they sound sexy. Like it's almost like modern day feminists, they confuse sexy with sexist, where it's like being sexy is like sexist, or like that's sexual harassment. It's like if you're the hot girl at the office, that's sexual harassment now, or something. Or it's like that's what a modern day feminist would want you to think. Or like there's a group of people that's pushing this so strongly about like the genders being equal, that it's like they want you to be afraid of hotness spelled with 4 S's and a star, or like hotness is just a stripper. There's a group out here that there's too many groups, like they're including the group that wants you to be afraid of hotness, the stripper with 4 S's and a star. Star is pretty unnecessary. I don't even know where it would fit in. It's like 4 S's and then a star at the end. Like that's just you're parodying yourself. Why, like if a stripper wants to be really innovative, she should just be like star, 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 star. All stars, and then she could be like all stars. She's the all-star team all in herself. Too many puns really with that one. So that really is an all-star kind of name for a stripper. Because they're always made fun of for like having a symbol or something in their name. Like you could really become a parody of yourself. I mean, like you could be really innovative, like critique the world of stripping. If you're just like, I'm star, 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 star 69. And star 69 is really what that function is on the phone. It's like, it's star 69, even though 69, is a number referencing 69ing, for example, for one of the things. 69 is not actually, it's not only about 69ing, it's about the number 69 in some cases. Like, people really lose sight of the number 69, like when there are 69 things. That's a problem in the world. That's a growing problem that people are losing sight of. It's like, hey, don't forget it. Like, we don't want to lose sight of reality here. It's just like people are just using words for whatever they want, and then they forget about what it actually means. And it's just like, is nothing sacred anymore? Um, like the number 69. Like, what am I what am I supposed to do when I have to mention that there's 69 of something in a presentation that I give, where like that just happened to be the number that there was of whatever thing I'm describing? How am I supposed to do that without laughing? In a serious situation, how am I supposed to bring up 69s anymore? So it's like, it's not like there aren't pitfalls. It's not like there aren't problems in the world. It's not like, I mean, people just like, and there's just a lot of ignorance. There is a certain amount of ignorance that happens, for really for really for everyone, especially the ignorant. The ignorant have a real problem with ignorance. They get damn ignorant. But the point that I'm making is just like the, different groups of people bringing up this thing, like this is the problem. I mean, like, there's all these groups swirling around, right? Political groups, like it used to be the SJWs. Do SJWs exist anymore? Or did we just screw them out of existence by everybody universally saying only negative things about them? Because we're like, we don't want you to be a social justice warrior, because like the second we call you that, we're totally making fun of that kind of person, or like the person with blue hair or whatever. It's just like critics that are trying to say, you don't get to talk, like you're white, or like you're white, you don't get to talk. Or it's like, we're giving more voices to women, or just like the way that it comes through in commercials, the way that it comes through in images, or just on social media platforms, is like the representation, for example, is like, okay, we don't want to show lots of white men because they've already had their turn, which is like, that's all good. It's just that, like that, for example, like things like that, I don't know that they translate into reality, but it's just like the news telling you that, oh, the wars are happening. It's just like the reality that's presented in the news, is basically always wrong. It's always off if you actually go out and talk to people, or like see the way that the public is today. Like the way that the public is today is not that much different from the way the public used to be, even though there's been all these changes in technology. It's like there's changes in technology, or like we're becoming so much more different, or I'm just saying there's all kinds of narratives that you could go with, especially in a world that doesn't really have a standard for news anymore, where we realize that nobody gets to speak for news. It's like we have CNN and MSNBC, and that's like the standard for news even today. But like people don't really believe them. But at this point, we see that their job is just packaging the news, and they don't actually create it. They just take other people's experiences and then package them under the CNN label and say like, oh, this is our news story. And so I don't know why like reporters should just be in jail for doing the job that they do. Like the local news, why are they allowed to take the worst tragedies of people's lives and then be like, oh, this is the ABC 12 news. There's a shooting at wherever, and that's our shooting, and we're gonna use it to promote ourselves and make some money. Because that's not their experience. That's what news is doing. Like the standards for news are actually people that are just stealing other people's experiences and then promoting them on a more national stage. But it's like only CNN has resources to do that for a long time. But it's like when you look at that they say they're news, but they're not generating what's new about it. Like the tragedy that happened is generating that. It's somebody else other than the reporters, basically in every single case, that's generating the news. But then the reporters get up there and they get to put their face on it, or the channel, the network does, and they for many years very successfully sold people that they were sold people on that they were generating what was new, even though they never have. And it just begs the question, like, who is generating what is new? Where does that actually come from? But like, if nobody was reselling it as like, this is new, but it's kind of like we go down certain pathways where we're like, we know that this is what's new, or it's like it becomes cultural to celebrate tragedies as new events or something like that. That's always generating a lot of buzz. But like, what is it? Who is it that generates the news? Actually, is a good question, because now we have all these alternative people that are postulating over what is new, like podcasters. Podcasters too are just taking material that happened somewhere else, just like the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, and everybody has their take on that, and everybody is just taking something that somebody else's story. So it's like, in that case, Johnny Depp generated the news basically just by what he was doing, and it is newsworthy because of a relationship that humanity and society, I mean, especially American society, there is a relationship that we have with the court system that we're deteriorating whatever it is that we see in that as a country. And we have been doing that over the years just by creating like Judge Judy and Judge Joe Brown, like all of these fringe court shows that are just for entertainment. But it's like, yeah, that's how we start to break something down as a country, is like at the point that somebody starts to just try to make money off of it for entertainment. Like Judge Judy is a more compromised version of what actually happens in a court, because it's just it's made for TV, obviously, and so she has to be an entertainer, and so she has to take some liberties and pretend like you watch Judge Judy, and it's basically like, okay, pretend for a moment that there's a world where where a person can actually know every intention that other people have, or there's a person that can actually read people's minds, because that's what Judge Judy pretends to do, or that's what she pretends to do, is be a person that is like the ideal version of somebody who can read other people's minds, or like is really intuitive and knows other people. So she's been selling people on this character for a long time, even though in reality she's made some guesses at times where she was like adamantly like, you're definitely the criminal or whatever. Like she's bullshitting basically the entire time, but she acts like she's on top of everything. Like she might be right about a lot of it, but probably at most like 90%. The other 10%, she just made the wrong decision, but acted like she knew it the entire time. But like when we made 60 Minutes, this was detrimental from what I understand. Like I haven't looked much into this, is more like a factoid I heard, but when 60 Minutes came around was about the time that we realized as a country, because 60 Minutes is kind of old, where we realized that news programs can just be entertaining, or like you'll actually get more ratings if you make a news that's entertaining rather than that you have to cover the cut and dry things that are happening. It helps to embellish what's happening, and it's like 60 Minutes came along as an entertainment news program, then that made it easier for them to launch like national networks, maybe. Or like, it's just that, like, I don't know the timeline, like if national networks like CNN and like Fox News and MSNBC, like the national news versions of NBC and Fox and all of them, I don't know if those came after 60 Minutes for sure, but it's just like at the point that you have national news, channels that are like a channel that is showing news all the time, you already know that that's complete bullshit, and all of like basically 99% of that is just for entertainment rather than that they're covering regular things, because you don't need that much news. You don't need that much coverage. That they're giving that much coverage to things is just like they realize you can make money off of ratings if you embellish news a little bit to make it entertaining rather than like average. Um, but it's like the pretending that things are news is what pretending that things are news is kind of like what everybody is a way of making money all its own. Propaganda, people promoting that's what promotion is. Propagandizing yourself, promoting yourself. This is like what every politician does, and this is what news networks do for politicians, like particularly Barack Obama. Like he's a persona. um I forget what I started to get off on this train of thought about that, like the news, Judge Joe Brown, Judge Judy. Like we introduce these court system things for entertainment, and this is related to like who generates the news, and like Johnny Depp went into the courts, and I'm saying that part of the reason why this Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing is so popular is because there's more entertainment to be made around the court system format or that context, because we're believing in it less and less, or it's really kind of like it's like a comedy if you think about it. Just what actually happens in a courtroom is kind of funny, like it's kind of a song and dance, is a little bit of a theater. Just the entire court system for anybody in court ever. It's kind of weird that there's like a judge and there's a jury and all of that. It's almost like a comedy in real life. And so there's been a number of things in entertainment, like people making shit around the court system in recent years, because society is kind of brushing up against like the stupidity of, like, we're poking holes in the stupidity of the court system because it's kind of like a joke at the end of the day. But like this is the most popularizing point of reference for that, is like this thing where Johnny Depp did this. Like I wonder if he's that much of a genius that he knew like it would be great if doing, like, it'd be amazing doing all of this in the court of law, like publicly, and everybody would see it. Or like I wonder if he knew that everybody would start watching this immediately or something. Like, is he that smart? But it's like the real celebrities make a way to be famous or be relevant even in 2022. Like Hollywood as a way of packaging celebrity is mostly deteriorated, but like the real celebrities like rise out of that, or they find a way to do something spectacular anyway. Like basically Johnny Depp is like in the top 1% of celebrities, because most of the rest of them are failing at trying to be relevant. Like maybe they have a TikTok, or I mean, most of the rest of them are just doing everything to be relevant through their Instagrams at this point. And what we see is that there's not that much great about them. I mean, unless you're like Matthew McConaughey or something. Like there's the lucky few where it's like, I guess people like Matthew McConaughey, even though I would look at what he puts out there and say like, oh, you're just kind of a pedestrian. Like I would definitely not listen to Matthew McConaughey over like a person, a comedian, because I would see it as that all the comedians have a lot more to say than McConaughey. McConaughey is just kind of like a pretender, but he gets a lot of mileage off of his pretending pretty well. Like his time should be done, and he is. I would say that he jumped the shark completely, like publicly, recently when he took up a political stance. I think he involved himself in gun control recently, or like showed up in Washington or something like that. And that's the end of that little run, I would say, for you. But I mean, it was just, we're just asking for it to end. Like it's pretty evident that, to me. I mean, McConaughey has some interesting philosophical things to say, but to me, it kind of just sounds like gibberish. That's just my opinion. But like, it's interesting that Johnny Depp he's able to break out and then like still be a star in the year 2022. in such a public, like, it's how do you rise above all of the shit that's out there in any way? That's difficult to do, even if you already have a platform. How do you rise above everything to get everybody's attention? Like, you really have to be a star to do that in today's climate, because there's too many narratives. But like, examples of in recent years, so it's like there's Judge Joe Brown and all of those come along as like hybrids between entertainment and an actual court. In the show Search Party, the third season, there's like an important scene. Like the third season, it ends with a trial, and like the trial is just kind of like a big joke. That's an example of entertainment joking on the court system in recent years. And then Tim Heidecker made a thing where, if you know who he is, he made a thing where he was like, he was pretending to be on trial, but it's like this video that's on YouTube where Tim Heidecker is playing this character. He's a comedian. He's playing this character that's on trial for accidentally killing 20 people. And then he stages this fake trial that lasts like 4 hours or something. There's like 3 parts to it, or it's like, I don't know, somewhere between like 4 and 10 hours long or something. Maybe it's just 4 hours, but it's like, he goes through everything like it's a real trial, but the entire thing is a joke. But there's been things in recent years where people are mocking the court system. But I'm saying how there's like, you could get lost in these narratives of like, I mean, there's CNN, and they're still promoting their same like Democratic Party agendas. And so they have narratives that they want you to be hypnotized by, they want you to believe in. And like the news has been like that basically for its entire existence. Like as long as national news channels, like cable channels that are solely devoted to news, as long as those have existed, is as long as this really shitty dynamic has existed where people are going to be under the impression that the world is a lot worse than it is. But if you actually go out and talk to people, you realize it isn't like that. And I think it's like that really for everything, like race or sexism. Like, don't get caught up in what people want you to believe about it. Just like now all of us are on board with this way of thinking about it. Because if you go out and talk to people, like people don't care about that. They're just living their lives. And like person to person, it's really just like, it's like getting caught up in thinking that there is an answer, or like one person or one group of people does ultimately have power over one group or one other person, when it isn't that way. It's like, maybe I'm advocating for, it's important to get out of your house a lot so that you can cut through the bullshit of like narratives you hear, because ultimately it's just fine. But like in the respect that Hollywood celebrities make speeches at award shows, in recent years we've all been like, they're bullshit for doing that. But there's a lot of years where nobody like mentioned, oh, they're bullshit or we don't want to hear them. But like the way that celebrities will give speeches at the Golden Globes or the Oscars, and they're political, and then critics later on will be like, what a powerful message, what an amazing example of political speeches, like the world is changing or because of this speech that this actor gave, or like Kesha gave such a powerful performance for feminism last night at the Grammys, and like shit like that. And then the news the next day is like, this is so powerful. But in reality, it's like, it's always been the case that that's bullshit to like think about changing how you think based on the opinion of a celebrity, based on the opinion of like Patricia Arquette making a speech. Like nobody's going to change their life because of that, because it's dumb. Because like, think of how the world works actually. Is like people are just walking around and they might hear the speech and they're gonna be like, oh, okay, now I'm gonna do the dishes or something. Like it really doesn't impact anything. It's just there's these people that want to act like it's really credible or like something spectacular happened. Like nothing spectacular is actually happening, is what I'm saying. And part of what goes along with that is like there it's like people aren't that great. Humans aren't that great. There's no one human that is that great. But like humanity generally thinks for through the ages up until this point, like we are trying to make it that it is that way, that there is a human that has the answers. Like America does that to today with the president, or it's like we like to make a figure who does have the power to be over everybody. Um, and I think that with it's kind of like with technology and with robotics and stuff like that. Like technology with the internet and just programming, YouTube or TV shows or like Transformers movies are just so eye-catching, for example. Like Transformers, the action movie of that, like, of course you're going to watch that if that's in the vicinity, probably. And especially if you're like in a movie theater. But it's like people get drawn into watching the Transformers or even just Ed, and Eddie. But I meant to say the Eddie Griffith show, but Ed, and Eddie is another example of something that people get drawn into. You get drawn into a cartoon or any program through the ages, Bonanza in the 60s or anything. It's like once Bonanza started showing up on TVs, people just started getting sucked into them. They're just watch them like zombies over talking to another person for some reason. Like for some reason, Bonanza, even though it's not really true to life, presents kind of an idealized fictional scenario. It's not true to life, but people like that more than talking to another person, and it's getting more and more that way. Just at the point that like everything is being created, or they're coming up with a program to fill the void, and every void that used to exist, like every space is being filled with new programs or new companies or new services or whatever. Like too many things are being made. And I'm saying that like to the point that people are getting, since so many things are being made, it's more difficult to avoid being sucked into them, to avoid being sucked into programs. So it's like people watch that over talking to somebody, and then the reason that I bring that up is because people get sucked into that, and it's just like when movies aren't actually real. But I'm just saying this. I'm saying that here's what I'm saying. Just give me a minute here, and here we go. And I'm saying how like people make programs like TV shows and shit like that, and they're just idealized scenarios. Like I'm the point I'm bringing up is about the idealism of it, and it's really like I don't know. I don't think it's the case that we're gonna go back to talking to people more. I'm saying like unfortunately we're going in the direction of talking to people less and less because of all these idealized scenarios that are presented in shows. But like at this point, shows and movies are in some senses being replaced by video games, but video games is an even more idealized scenario. But it's like people get sucked into their TVs at the point that we see that this happens, and it's because the TV show is idealized and better than regular life, so it's more interesting. And really more interesting is what's always happening across the world because there are more things being created. Like there's more programs, there's more specific shit that's happening. Like things are more interesting, and like like the shit that you get sucked into, like video games are becoming more interesting, and the world where you're just walking around is basically just staying at the same level of interesting all the time. And so this is like a problem if you were hoping that the world would go back to like people just being more friendly with each other and talking with each other. But like so it's going in that direction where you have less chance to talk to people, but I'm just making the point about how humans are boring, and they're boring in comparison to all of these worlds that we can now get ourselves involved into. And it would appear that it is only going to become more and more that way, that there will only be better and better options for video games based on the trajectory that we've seen in the last 30 years. The trajectory is that people are getting sucked into technology. We can see this. And it's like technology is like a better version of humanity in some senses, possibly, but like we create these robots or chatbots that are like going to tell you more things that you want to hear than a person is. And like if it gets to the point that they have robots that just like they simulated a person completely, but then they're like a better than a person. I'm just saying about how people in regular life do not meet each other's needs spectacularly, because no person is better than anybody else. No person is the answer, actually. Like, and so, but if you get into thinking that, like, get caught up in these narratives, like, oh, everybody's deciding to be like this, like, I mean, just kind of giving into like power that people presume to have, or they like feminists would like you to think that they have all the power in the world, that it's the same with CNN, and CNN used to be more successful at saying that they had all this power, that they're like on the side of the agendas that are popular across the board for everybody, or it's like CNN would like to pretend that they're speaking for everybody. um it's just that like humans aren't that great, actually, like, and it's almost like they can't compete with technology because technology is always idealized and movies are always idealized. like like the guy in Manchester by the Sea, I regret to inform you, is not that's not a real guy. Like, the whole point of the movie Manchester by the Sea, Casey Affleck, the guy playing the main character, he is a he's like meant to look like a really real guy, is why I bring up that example. Like, he's really authentic. Like, that's a real guy. You could see how that guy exists in reality. That's how they wrote the movie. That's how they write the characters. That like, oh, this is like a real guy that lives in the New England area, of course. And because real guys are forgetful, like this guy, and also forgetful guys are from New England, according to this movie, as if that doesn't happen everywhere. Um, but it's like, oh, that's like, oh, there's a forgetful guy because, or like the flaws apparent about him are so apparent. I'm just saying, like, Casey Affleck, I mean, it looks like he's a real guy, but that's actually a really produced character when it comes down to it. I know that that's a great movie and all that. I hate to ruin the mystique for you, but that's not a real guy. Nobody is actually like that in reality. Like, it might apply, like, nobody has done all of those exact things, is what I'm saying. Like, there are too many things that that character meets, and it's written that way so that it's a popular movie and people want to watch it. And it's like a compelling story and wins awards and shit like that, because they're trying to make a really good movie. And so what makes a really good movie is they wrote a character that's pretty real. Like, it's almost real. It's almost like this guy could definitely exist, and that's why it is such a successful and well remembered movie. Um, but like, he's not real because it might be the case that there's a few people walking around that, I mean, there are people that probably did accidentally, spoiler alert, um, light their entire house on fire, and then they're responsible. They're the reason that their children died in a house fire because of an accident that they committed, because they're forgetful and they live in the New England area. Um, like, that's a possibility, but they're not also, in probably every case, they're not also somebody that was like well connected beforehand, that has this really stable life. Um, I I don't know. I'm just saying, like, that guy that does that is not also like one of the most likable characters otherwise. That's mostly impossible. Um, just for a number of reasons. He's also like not like, obviously it's cut together to make it more sad. Like, it's a little over the top at the point that he's like, he takes the policeman's gun and then tries to kill himself, but can't do it because now he's like, oh, now, like, the main character. Anyways, I said spoiler alert, so that should make up for if you're gonna watch the movie. Because if you say spoiler alert, that makes it so that you're not gonna hear what I say after it. Like if you say that doing stand up or something, like I was like talking about a movie and I said spoiler alert beforehand, nobody in that room is going to cover their ears and like make a lot of noise to not hear it. They're just about to hear what I'm going to say. Like saying spoiler alert in a lot of cases doesn't ever do anything because the the people not trying to hear it aren't willing enough to block out the noise. Or they're not going to leave the room because you look like an idiot. So just spoiler alert is only something you would say to protect yourself. But like, it's just like you, I've never met anybody like Casey Affleck in that movie, but you automatically aspire to be like that, even though he's a mistake prone person. I mean, at least I do. I'm like, oh, I wish I was like that guy because he has all of the qualities of like a likable, popular person ultimately, is because he's written that way. And so like, oh, I wish I was like that. And it's just like it's like people in movies are more. It's easier to create a character that is a complex of all of the qualities needed. Like regular people come up short. That's not to say that like regular people are actually still doing pretty well. It's just that if there's a future where if robots become more and more competitive, and it's just like, I don't know why they wouldn't be. It's just like humanity isn't the answer. The same way that when we were all gorillas, the same way when we were all monkeys, that wasn't the answer for what our species was. And then we graduated to something more evolved. We became humans, and then like now we're living at this completely higher plane than animals, where we're a lot smarter than them. And so then people argue like the earth belongs to the animals and we're actually just as smart as them, or it's like humans are no better than animals, when they definitely are, because humans are better because we came up with civilization. For example, we came up with anything that's ever been invented. Humans did that. Like a dog, I would argue that a dog in basically every case can't match the emotional intelligence of a human, because and that shouldn't be a significant statement, because a dog is a dog, but like a dog doesn't. Why would a dog be able to? Why would a dog have a concept of love that humans have? Like, do dogs live through the '60s? And well, it's like, first of all, dogs don't even know the word love. So they don't process it. And so our idea of love is much different than a dog, because a dog doesn't even have that word and can't speak it, has never used it. A dog didn't see it, like cultural impact, like all of the art representations of love from like music in the 60s, or music ever, like love songs, any manifestation of it in art, culturally speaking, that we're like, oh, that's love, that humans have been impacted by for years and years and years. Like we have a concept of love that is really specific to humanity. And so like the way that I would evaluate it, I really have no idea how a dog would have the same vision of love that a human would. And so like I wouldn't expect that. It's like how when people say that dogs have no concept of time, like, yeah, they don't. They don't have any concept of time or money because they're just dogs. But like they don't have any concept of gratitude either. So don't give them good quality. Don't give them like these amazing qualities when it's the same thing applies. They don't even have a concept of concepts. They don't have a concept of love either, I would argue. Like, for the same reasons. How would they know about what we as humans, after like thousands of years of evolving in language and shit like that? I mean, that's an argument, and I guess I decided to end the episode by being mean to people, to the dog cultures of the world, dog cultures. I'm just saying like Um, I'm talking about like humans aren't that great, and we evolved out of monkeys and then became humans, and so I don't really know why it wouldn't be the case that we'd evolve out of humans to some like human robot hybrid, but we're sort of going in that direction as we merge ourselves with virtual reality more so, and it's not like in it's not like any one thing happened this year that you would be like, oh, now we're closer to merging with computers, or it's like things are now more a simulation than they used to be. But I think that these things actually happen really subtly and more than people give it credit for. I think that it kind of happens subtly that we merge with it a little bit more, but like allegedly robotics are gonna get bigger and bigger into the future, that we're gonna be like competing with them as humans, but like we would probably merge with them at some point. But that's exactly what's happened in the past, is like when we were monkeys, we merged with this new this like slightly more robotic thing, less natural thing. We became more artificial over time as we transitioned from monkey to human. That is a more artificial transition. And at some point we started calling everybody persons, when a person is like an artifice of a word. To It's like a mask of a word, because it's originally comes from a word for masks that people were wearing in plays. And so, like, a person is kind of like an actor, ultimately, like, if you go back to the origin of the word. But it's like person and then personality, like words that come off of a personification and shit like that, words related to person. It's really like a whole culture develops around just the idea of a person and us engaging with it and like calling each other that at the point that we start using it. But it was like originally a word for actors, but it's kind of just like person is a technology that we take advantage of so that we can call each other persons and say that we're not exactly actors, even though we do have to um even though like all of the things that we think aren't immediately spoken, because language is limited. Like the English language can only account for so much of what you're thinking, because your thoughts are not exactly the English language or whatever language that you know. And since that isn't the case, like English language is, when you use it, you compromise what you're thinking to format it into the language. And the language, so like person being one of the words, but I'm saying that like when you have to compromise your thoughts into a language, then it becomes a little bit more of a performance rather than like everything is authentically out there. Like you have to sell it a certain way because you have to tailor it into words. You have to fix it into words. So it is kind of like it is like a product ultimately anytime you're speaking. And so people are like a little bit like actors. And so we come up with a person to describe this process, and then that makes it so that we don't have to think of ourselves as actors. But then like at some point, because it's just so central to what we're doing in life, that we're all like sort of performing just when we're talking to each other in conversation, then at some point like Hollywood and acting becomes this really valued skill. And it's almost like unexplainable as to why do we value acting so much. We do because everybody's doing it all the time. And so then like when somebody is the best at selling people on acting, then there's something like a god, and that's why we lift up the actors to be gods, is because they're doing the thing better than us, the thing that everybody's doing all the time. It's like sort of what everybody is automatically aspiring to, is like being the best actor, like when they're talking to each other. Um, but like selling people on themselves. And so if you're the best at it, then you're like Casey Affleck, and you're so good at it that you're like presenting idealized versions of acting. And so like the actors are people too, even if they present an idealized looking performance for a well-written character. Um, it's like ultimately Casey Affleck is just a person, and like that just speaks to the skill that he has, because it's almost like that is a real guy because he's able to make him real on the screen. Um, but the people that are able to pull off a more idealized presentation successfully are the people we lift up to be celebrities. Those are the people that are like gods. And I don't want to go too long. I guess I could go longer, but it annoys me sometimes when it's like too long over an hour. But the we are in the way that we go about things, like it's not like we are currently saying that humans are falling behind, just competitively speaking, like humans can't compete with today's entertainment. Like it's almost like you could describe it that way. But it's always the case that we're always making gods out of humans. Everybody's always trying to get to God for the course of all of human existence. But we're kind of like we're grasping at something above ourselves all the time. We do that just by saying that there are humans with the answer, or it's something more than just that humans are average. But it's really like humans are average. It's just at the point that you make humans into gods that you start getting into the territory of like now you're under the thumb of feminists or something. Like, oh, feminists, like being worried about the power of their message. Like really it's just that the power of anybody's message is not that great. But we're always trying to get closer to God, and we're always like trying to articulate that. And then it's nice that people come along that have skills or something that we're like we can make them a god, or I mean, then they get more responsibility or whatever. But um, overall, I wonder what I could close out by saying. Probably nothing in particular, but I'll have to figure out the title later. Thanks for listening to that. Subscribe to my YouTube. Comment under it. Comment something mean, something nice, anything you want. I like comments. Um, I'll. I hope that YouTube won't filter them out. Don't be discouraged by what I said about YouTube. I'll make it so the comments appear or something. I'll make it work, or we'll just comment or whatever. And thanks. Bye.